What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 183 of the Nerd Cave podcast. Just one episode closer to hitting that 200 mark. I am one of your hosts, Derek Diamond, and as you can tell if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast, I'm by myself this week. And that's because we participated in a really cool thing, which I'll get to more details about a little later on in the show, called Extra Life, where we basically played video games for 24 hours straight to raise money for sick children, and all proceeds went to our local children's hospital, Sacred Heart, which you can actually still donate up until December 31st, I believe. But Zach and Robbie, they went the full 24 hours. I unfortunately was not able to because Saturday was also my girlfriend's birthday, so I couldn't really spend the entire day playing video games, but I did get to spend several hours doing it. And like I said, I'll get into more details later on. But and if my voice sounds a little different or I'm a little short of breath, I apologize. I'm fighting a sinus infection. I have been fighting it for the last couple of weeks. And right before I started doing this podcast, I started to get a little short of breath and coughing quite a bit. So I do apologize for that. But Zach and Robbie are resting today. They stayed up, like I said, the full 24 hours, so they are resting today. I'm recording this Sunday evening, and I just told them, look, guys, I'll handle the podcast. So we do have a few news stories to get into. Not too many, but some pretty good ones. We'll start off in the comic book movie world, and as a shout-out to Zach, I will start with the DC universe, and that would be the new Wonder Woman trailer that came out. And I watched it, the day it came out, obviously, and I really liked it. I know it's been getting a little bit of flack for being similar to the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, being that this movie takes place in the World War I era, but I don't think it's really that big a deal. I honestly think this is the best looking DC movie that Warner Brothers has been putting out since they kind of rebooted their shared universe with Man of Steel. I actually think this is going to be the best of the DC movies. I know a lot of people are excited because Wonder Woman is the most iconic female superhero that there is. And given that Gal Gadot did such a good job playing her in the limited time that she was in Batman v Superman, I think giving her her own movie and having, some good backstory to it. I'm not sure who the villains are going to be because, to be honest, I'm not too familiar with Wonder Woman's Rogues Gallery. But I like that Chris Pine's in it. He's playing, I think his name is Steve Trevor, who is kind of a love interest to Wonder Woman. I really like him as an actor. I think him and Gal Gadot are going to have really good chemistry. And this movie can't come out soon enough for me. I know I'm a Marvel fanboy, and me and Zach will bicker about it off and on the podcast sometimes, but I want the DC movies to be good. I want all these movies to be good. It's better for the fan base if all the movies are good, Marvel and DC. And yeah, Marvel is kind of its own juggernaut right now, and DC is still trying to find itself. But I've said this before, DC does not need to fast-track everything to try and play catch-up with Marvel. They need to find their own way. They need to develop the stories the way, honestly, that Marvel has done them. And sure, you'll be copying the Marvel formula, but if it works, why not do it? Because that's why the Avengers was so good when it first came out, because we had Iron Man, we had the Incredible Hulk movie, we had Captain America, we had Thor. We invested time in these characters. What is the big deal if we're introduced to the Flash in Justice League? Where has been the time that we've come to, grow a relationship with Barry Allen, with Iris West? Or same thing with Cyborg. How are we supposed to sympathize with this kid who has become basically a robot? I just don't see it. Like I said, I'm not dissing the movie. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be bad because I'm excited for Justice League. I think the trailer looked great. But I just don't agree with the method that DC has gone to try and fast track all of these movies. But I'll get off on my tangent. I think Wonder Woman, I think the trailer looked great. I'm excited for the movie. I'll definitely be seeing it. I think this is going to be the first DC Universe movie that is mostly popular. It'll get its fair share of critics, but I think this is going to be the one that most everyone will agree, okay, that was a good movie. And I really hope so, because, we haven't had a superhero movie that's been led by a female. And I think Gal Gadot has proved she can carry that role, and I think it's going to be good. I'm really excited for it. Moving on into the Marvel side of things, we've been talking about Deadpool 2 off and on. Tim Miller left due to what was supposedly creative differences, and I gave a pretty good explanation about that last week, that it's rumored that he left because Tim Miller wanted the budget to be bigger, and he wanted to add more things to it, and Ryan Reynolds wanted to keep it low budget and give it kind of that indie, gritty feel that made Deadpool so different. And if that's the case, I actually sided with Ryan Reynolds on that one. But it does suck because Tim Miller was one of the driving forces to making that movie happen. But the latest news, composer Junkie XL drops out because Tim Miller is not directing. And this is from IGN. Excuse me. Along with director Tim Miller, Deadpool 2 has also just lost its composer. Junkie XL, who composed the first Deadpool film, has announced on Facebook that he's no longer doing the score for the sequel. The decision was solely down due to Miller's recent departure from the project, which has forced Junkie XL to do some soul-searching. According to the composer, Miller was the driving force behind Deadpool and getting Junkie XL involved with the first film. He quoted, "Deadpool without Tim at the helm just does not sit right with me, and that is why I've decided not to be involved with the second chapter." Junkie XL he worked with Hans Zimmer on the Batman vs. Superman soundtrack, and also did Mad Max Fury Road, which if you haven't seen that movie yet, it's so good. So good. You got to see Fury Road. This to me is a big deal. You lose your director, which is big enough in itself, being one of the driving forces as to why the movie happened. But you can eventually find someone to replace him. And I think, it's the same thing with the composer, but losing both of them, because Deadpool has a unique sound to it. Now that you've lost both your composer and your director, I think that's enough to kind of raise an eyebrow to this whole thing. I mean, Deadpool 1 had a lot riding on it, and they had to fight tooth and nail to get the movie to happen, and it looks like they have more odds to overcome with the sequel. It's a shame if it does affect it, because I really like Deadpool. I think it was the shot in the arm that the superhero movie genre needed, because we've gotten what we call the Marvel formula, and I'll get to that later when I review Doctor Strange. But it was just so unique and so accurate to the character, and it was just such a fun time. We haven't really had that R-rated superhero movie that was kind of a dark comedy too. So I don't know. I think the movie will still be decent. I'm very curious to see what happens. I'm very curious to follow the production, because I think that starts early next year. I'm very curious to see what happens throughout the whole process, because losing your director is a big thing, and I don't know. I hope they can overcome it, because I like Ryan Reynolds. I think he was the perfect choice for Deadpool. You can tell he loves the character, and he really cares about it in the interviews that he does and his portrayal of Wade Wilson on screen. So I really hope that all of this works out.